And I can't hold it much longer. Gotta let go so I can be free.
Kip is here.
Hello, hello. Happy holidays, you two.
Happy holidays to you. Kratz, what were you saying to Kip before?
Erik, say it back.
I knocked on his door. I was like, Kip, you want to come out and play? We can play catch. You want to play catch? Kip's like,
Awesome.
no, bro. I'm just chilling, man. I'm just hanging out. Like, leave me alone.
Your impressions are getting really good.
He is good. He is a member of I just think of the movie Step Brothers when it's him and Todd Frazier when they're sitting next to each other. They're like flicking each other's ears and all that. So, but I feel like Kratz has gotten so good. He's on every day that he can actually do that act without physical contact. Like, he can do it with his facial expressions, with his words. He's got something going here.
Finally, an everyday guy, Kratz.
I know, it's taken so long. I get to play every day now.
It makes me so much better.
It suits you.
Except for when we go to places, except for when we're like at the winter meetings or like fun places, they always call me and they're like, "Hey, it's not you, but you're not going." And I'm like, "What? But I want to."
Well, maybe you'll get more invites as the days go on, but there are multiple reasons for that. Okay, he's busy.
I'm busy. Can't make it.
I'm busy. Yeah.
The real life most important reason for that.
We haven't told you the dates yet. I'm busy.
Yeah, exactly. He's busy. His calendar's busy. I've had that before. I've asked for something in past lives, and they've been like, "You can't do it." And I'm like, "I didn't even say the date yet." I had that with my past job once. I was trying to do something I used to work for SNY and for MLB Network and a couple other spots, and the two bosses hated each other. They're both out of those positions for a while now, so I don't give a shit. But he was like, "You can't do it." And I was like, "I didn't even ask you for the dates yet." He was like, "We have you on show," because they didn't say you can't do it because we don't want you to. They said you can't do it because we have you on shows or a game or whatever. I was like, I didn't even give you the dates. So how do you know? It's Christmas at 6 a.m. You got me working? Actually, they probably did. But
probably you did. Probably,
yes. Hey, real quick before we start, and we'll get into this, a lot of baseball, World Baseball Classic news, and then plenty of rumors and the whole deal. This I've been sitting on for about a week, and I keep forgetting to bring it up, so I'll just do it right here. Kratz, Stephen A. Smith has had a very successful career, but he was on his own little podcast the other day, and I don't have the clip because I'm just bringing this up randomly, and I don't want to get too far away. He was talking about the Pete Alonso signing with the Orioles, and he brought up how he only played 57 games his sophomore season. He was hurt, like kind of, I guess, I don't know if you want to call it knocking him, but just kind of going through as if he is the historian, taking us through the chronological career of Pete Alonso. Yeah, his sophomore season, Kip, was a season you know well. It was called 2020, the pandemic. He played 57 out of 60 games.
Yeah.
Just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. 98% of the games, 97% of the games.
He was pretty healthy his sophomore year. So
pretty healthy. And
I want to slander him as an injury-prone player. He's been super durable, and on his show, he's just like, "Oh, he got hurt. He only played 57 games his sophomore year." Like, hey, I know you missed that year and every other year ever in our sport, which is fine. Yeah. You do your thing. You've got your sports. But Kratz, I'm like, we only ended up playing 60 games that year.
I hear you. And when you're not in it all the time, I get it. You're rattling stuff off. I know I have done it. I've done it where I've looked at stats and I've just been like, okay. Oh yeah, it must have been. Oh wait, no, this happened. And I'm like, man, I feel like an idiot. But he's riffing on his own. Like he's just throwing words out all the time. I can't have it. Blah, 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 blah. So I'll give him a pass on this one, even though it does fall into the easy, like Stephen A. doesn't watch baseball category. But hey, you know what, Stephen A., you could have a show on FT and we'll teach you all about baseball.
Maybe I'll get him on sometime. I think I can actually pull that off, and we can have a little chit chat, and we can teach him a few things from the player perspective here from you guys. But anyway, we got a lot of news to get to, so let's begin.
Charging the mound.
World Baseball Classic roster news coming in hot and very frequent. Let's start with one of the best pitchers in our sport. I would say you can make a case for Skeens and Skubal. Skeens has been in for a while now. He started his college career at Air Force. He's like, I'm pitching every single WBC if I'm healthy. Tarik Skubal is in. I think this is fascinating, Kip, because Skubal is the talk of the town. He's still involved in trade rumors. I don't know if that's going to end up happening, but what I can tell you is that he is entering his free agent year, and the Team USA ball club has had trouble recruiting top-end pitching talent. This is already a much better looking pitching staff than we've seen in the past from Team USA. They won, not last time, it was Japan, but the time before that. This puts them in a much better position. So what do you think about the addition here? We'll go over some other roster moves within Team USA, but also the fact that a guy who's about to hit free agency is committing to something that occasionally causes concern for injury.
You'd probably like him. I think he would probably like a deal to be in place before he starts that, because for the same reason that you just said, that there have been injuries that have come down the road from it. But in terms for the USA, just speaking on that, I mean, for American pitchers, this is not, we have what, number 1 and number 2 right now? I put those Skeens and Skubal are the top guys that we could get, and that it doesn't get much better than that in this game. So that is an awesome get for Team USA. Sets them up great, because pitching wins games in those type of atmospheres, and it just increases the odds then down the road, maybe at the championship or to get into a championship. Now you have the better odds to have one of those guys going. It sets you up really well. They've already had the big lineups, but now if you start getting those pitchers to come in, that puts you right back up there with Japan and ready for a rematch.
So Mark DeRosa is essentially the Team USA Elite Gold National 12U team. He's got to figure out how to use the best players to try to win this travel ball tournament that he is entering in. Like, I think now, I mean, he's got what he needs. Now it's a matter of, do they throw Paul Skeens in what would be the semifinals and Tarik Skubal in the finals? Do they say we got to get to this, so we want them throwing in the first 2 games? What if the first game's against Brazil? Like, I think it's more of like figuring out how to put the best team out there now, but this is the first time that I've seen this good of pitchers, and I love the fact that Tarik Skubal did it, and I think people are too afraid of injuries. Organizations, not just a free agent that's looking to possibly make $400 million or $350 million, but organizations. When I played for Team USA, and we're going to have Cody Ponce on tomorrow, it's hard to get organizations to send pitchers to play in stuff like Team USA puts out there. When you're playing high quality, tough international games, teams just think, oh, it's such an injury risk. There's such an injury risk. To me, I'm going to go with Tarik Skubal is doing exactly what a recent Tiger, Max Scherzer, did in his last year. He's betting on himself. Max Scherzer bought a little insurance policy. I'm sure Tarik Skubal is going to do the same thing. And he's like, I'm going to get my money, whether it's through the insurance policy that I got or when I go to free agency. And he's like, I don't see any reason why I would get hurt, because I'm a beast, and the opportunity to play for Team USA is something I hope no player ever turns down if they haven't gotten to do it yet.
Kratz, question. Do you remember at all the type of restrictions teams would put on pitchers if they kind of make a deal with them that, okay, you're allowed to go, here's a pitch count, is there a conversation between the organizations and the World Baseball Classic Team USA saying, we'll send you our guy? Or is it the player's choice? What if the player wants to go, but does the team not let a player go before?
For sure. I don't know about WBC, but I know the conversations for Team USA, because my second time through, I wasn't sitting at the table with the organizations, but I was 39 years old, and they were like, do you have any pitchers that you think should be on this team? And, the guys that I The guys that I suggested were guys that two of them ended up making the team. And I know they said, look, the organization's not going to get in my way. And I said, well, what about this guy? They said, we called, the organization said no. And I said, all right, well, why don't you have that guy call the organization? And then the organization got a call from said pitcher, and they ended up letting him go. So some teams, some organizations are like, no chance. We already have your pitch limit. Like, especially now. Now organizations say, okay, we want you to throw 70 innings this year. We want you to make 22 starts as a minor league starting pitcher. If you fall short of that number, then they're less hesitant to let you go and make 2 more starts. Because really, when you're on these teams, you're not making that many starts. But you stay ramped up all the way through the end of October, November. That's minor leagues. That's the Team USA stuff that I did. This, to me, it's about, hey, what's your routine? What's your routine, Paul Skeens? Are you coming into spring training throwing 86 to 89 and working up to your 97 to 99? No. His first spring training start, most guys' first spring training start for Paul Skeens, he'll be down in Bradenton. He's coming out there and he's throwing probably 3 to 4 innings, and he's pumping his normal 95 to 99. Like, guys don't ramp up the same as they used to ramp up.
Okay. Mark DeRosa, Team USA manager, brought this up publicly after they lost last time to Japan in the finals. It was a lot of phone calls and a ton of rules. So this time around, he wants guys that essentially have less restrictions, right? He wants to be able to utilize his roster in a winning way, the way that the team that beat them does, Team Japan. So I think there's 2 prongs to this. It's getting pitchers that are all in that might have less restrictions, but also guys that have juice, right? How much are the Tigers really going to dictate with Skubal? Like, oh, hey, Tarik, we'd like you to only go 50. I know that for this round it's 70 on the restriction. Be like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I don't need your help. Thank you. I know how to prepare for a Cy Young season. So don't you think that helps, Kip, where a team is going to have more difficulty telling a pitcher what to do if it's somebody that has Tarik Skubal, Paul Skeens like pull and success in the big leagues?
Yes and no, because if they have that success, they probably have a bigger investment attached to them by that team, so that the teams would be more worried about it that way a little bit. And it's tough because it's like you don't want to shelter yourself from injury or worry about it too much, because then you're gonna not play how your body normally plays, and you might be more apt to get injured that way. But then you have to plan for it a little bit, and by plan for it, I mean you have to know that you can ramp up enough and say, I'm only going to throw 3 innings or do whatever. But once those lights come on and that adrenaline starts going, you're right back in game mode, and you're going to be throwing out your shoes a little bit, and your body just might not be there. So it's a really give or take. And I think they have the right to voice their opinion. That's kind of why I asked Kratz, is it strictly the players' decisions? Because, I mean, they are their own entity, and they are their own business. If team says they don't want them to go, can the player just be like, well, I'm going? So I wonder if an organization would penalize them, fine them. I really wanted to know how that would play out.
I don't know contractually. That's a good point. Like, could they, rubber hits the road. Are they saying, like, no chance, you are not able to go? If you go, this will happen. I don't know. That would be a good pitcher question that went through it. But are we ever going to see this type of stars align, in the sense that part of this, somebody has to pick up the insurance tab? When I go and play for Team USA, there's insurance on me as a player. It's very, very small. When you start talking about, and this is why they put values on prospects, when you start putting insurance packages together for a valued prospect, like let's say the number 1 prospect, Connor Griffin, he gets asked, there's a cost to let him be insured to play on a team that is not a Major League Baseball team, his current team. So Tarik Skubal, while he is going to be really expensive, currently He's not. So that insurance cost is definitely down. Paul Skeens, while he's going to be expensive, right now because of his salary, that insurance cost is down. You just happen to have 2 pre-free agent pitchers who are the best 1-2 pitchers in Major League Baseball right now.
The WBC makes a ton of money these days, and I don't think the players get much for it. So I do think that the insurance gets covered by whatever they're making, league profit, whatever. So I think it's an easier sell, even though it's expensive. That's my guess. I don't know for sure. They don't reveal a lot, but players aren't making millions of dollars on this. So I do think that the petty cash fund is pretty reasonable, that they can go, oh, okay, we'll throw some money at this, right? I mean, this whole package got sold to Fox. Ratings are going to be great. Netflix bought the package for Japan. Numbers are going to be Super Bowl-like for
ratings are going to be unreal. It's going to be awesome.
Unreal. They were last time when Japan beat USA, and it was Trout versus Ohtani. I mean, it's sick. It's an awesome tournament. I love it. Love it. I just want to finish with a few other roster notes here, because anyone that's catching this later on, I want to give them like the comprehensive look. We haven't touched on this a ton. Many of the position players are known already. It's Cal Raleigh, Judge, Schwarber, Gunnar Henderson, Will Smith, Pete Armstrong, etc. Right? The pitching is what's the focus. The World Baseball Classic Team USA team has struggled with finding the big boys. Mason Miller just committed. Others in the bullpen: Griffin Jacks, Garrett Clevenger, and then I guess Clay Holmes is probably going to be coming out of the bullpen. Garrett Whitlock. Starting pitching wise, we've got Matthew Boyd, Paul Skeens, Tarik Skubal, Joe Ryan just committed, and then the interesting one I wanted to bring up was Nolan McLean. He was one of the better rookie pitchers, didn't pitch a ton last year, but when he did, he was great for the Mets. Mets fans are freaking out. Do you remember the last WBC? This dude's entering his first full season, Kip, so this one's a little more unconventional.
Stand still after a win. Do not.
Oh, man. I mean, I'm pumped for Team USA. I mean, I think this guy's a number one starter.
He's nasty. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. No, I love it. Mets fans, the risk is worth it. Risk it for the biscuit, because Nolan McLean, you want him to be in your rotation for the playoffs. There is no better chance for him to get a playoff experience without actually getting there. And he will get there. This team will be a playoff team, but you want him to have that experience. The WBC is it. Do not fear getting hurt. Stop. He's going to get hurt. He has a same chance of getting hurt, almost the same chance of getting hurt in spring training as he does playing for Team USA.
Long-term development's huge too if you're hanging out with the best players in the sport. So I'm with you. And it's not like he's going to start every day. He's going to get 2 starts maybe in the WBC.
Maybe 1.
So, yeah, maybe 1 depending on how it lays out. And then lastly,
I'm not sneezing at the Joe Ryan addition too. He's a stud as well.
Oh, hell yeah.
They got some pitching.
It is a much different looking staff than usual, and we'll continue to learn about more names. Last one I want to throw at you that won't be participating. Mookie Betts just revealed he is not in for Team USA. The birth of his 3rd child is expected around the same time. And the quote he gave to some, I don't know, random digital show thing, I honestly don't know what it's called, Aiden Ross. She, as in his wife, Brianna Betts, said that she would divorce me if I wasn't there. That's as real as it gets. Mookie, you do your thing, man.
that organization ain't letting you go to this one. Yeah, that's not just a fine. That's just, you better listen to that one.
That's a
that injury will be worse than what could happen to the WBC.
that would be worse. That would be costly. And you talk about getting rings from the organization he's with, the Dodgers. He gets rings from them. Every child is a championship ring. So
there you go.
Go be with your kid. They don't need a backup shortstop because Bobby Witt's going to play short anyway, Mookie. That's the real reason you're not playing. We get it. It's okay.
There's no insurance policy that's going to cover that either. So there's no insurance policy for, I got to leave and my wife might hate me forever if I'm not in the delivery room. So yes, WBC Team USA is in good shape. Bobby Witt Jr. will handle things. Okay. Coming up next, we're going to hit our offseason to-do list with the Marlins. Isaac Azout joining the show for the first time. let's hit the Marlins for our offseason to-do list. Isaac Azout joining us right now. Isaac, great to have you on, and you can catch Isaac's work on Fish on First. Great site covering the Marlins, writes for them, editor for them, co-host of Fish Unfiltered, among many other Marlins insights. So let's get into this. Isaac, what do you think is the to-do list here for the Marlins? So far, Christopher Morel added to see if they can catch some fire from somebody who definitely has the StatCast stats. But what else can you tell us about what you expect?
Well, I think the Marlins have a few things on their to-do list for sure. First things first is the high leverage relief options that are on the market, still on the market anyway. I think they want to shore up the back end of that bullpen immediately. Then second is probably to add at least one or maybe two more bats to their lineup, whether it's via trade or free agency. I think either way, they just would like to add a little bit of length to that lineup. And then finally, for the first time in a while, I think you could see an extension happen this offseason. Like I said, for the first time, at least under this ownership group, the Marlins have some pretty attractive extension candidates, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's maybe multiple extensions announced in the next 12 months or so.
High leverage relief options, Isaac, have been going off the board. Mm-hmm. Have they been in on those in the sense that not in like the Red Sox are in on every single player, still haven't signed a major league free agent, but were they in? Were they in to push this team in an area, like you said, high leverage? Like, to me, this is one of the better starting pitching organizations that's out there right now. And then the bullpen just fell flat on their face for the most part. A high leverage would have pushed them to above 500, to a much higher season-ending record.
Yeah, 100%. They improved by 17 wins last year. I think you could have seen them be in the postseason race up until game 162 had they had a little bit more depth at the back end of that bullpen. Obviously, Ronnie Henriquez did everything he could. But yes, to answer your question, they were very much interested in Devin Williams before he got off the board. They were interested in Steven Matz, Cal Finnegan, Ryan Helsley before he went to Baltimore. So they have been in on a lot of these guys, but unfortunately, they just weren't comfortable going to the multiple years that they did command from their respective organizations. The one guy that's still out there that still is considered high leverage is Peter Fairbanks, and I can confirm that the Marlins are still very much interested. They've even upped their offers to the mid-teens for a one-year deal, so you could see him 1 year, $13, $14 million or so. So yeah, I think that's their sort of last chance for that high leverage role anyway. And I think if, let's say, they're unable to get him, I think you could see them sort of wait till January, February for some of those lower tier guys. Maybe someone like a Sir Anthony Dominguez could come close to them.
Wait, they weren't comfortable going a few years? Like, this team is young. It's not like they're like, we got to win now. This is the win now. Like, if they get a stopgap 1 year Pete Fairbanks at, even if they say $13 million, which per year, that would be more than what Brad Keller got. That would be more than what Luke Weaver got. Mm-hmm. Why do you feel like, besides the fact that they're cheap and don't want to spend, that they weren't willing to, with the way this roster is, and I love this young roster, say, we want somebody for 3 years that locks down that bullpen?
It's not about the money. It's like you said, it's about the years. And from what I understand, this is just the way that Peter Bendix operates. It's the way that Tampa Bay Rays operate. They don't feel comfortable handing out. They think that free agent deals are just sometimes not a great value at times. And if you want to get a reliever who there's no position on the field that's more volatile than that, they just don't feel comfortable handing out 3 year deals to guys who have suffered some injury history in Fairbanks' case, or in other guys like Williams. Some guys will command 4-5 year deals like Suarez and like Edwin Diaz. But in Miami's case, Peter Bendix is going to operate in the way like the Rays have, and they're just going to give 1 year deals to a lot of these guys.
Let me, I'm going to transfer over to the extensions, but first let me help you a little bit. It's about the money. It's not about the years. they don't care about the years. It's always about the money. But instead of throwing out the words cheap or anything, let's just go cost effective, small market. I played in one for many years, Cleveland. And one of their guidelines to get through it, and one of their reasons that they were successful in the 90s and 2000s and before that, was they would lock up their young players early and on cheap deals, rather. They would be team-friendly deals, and that's how you get them. So who are the top priorities that Miami's trying to consider? Who do you think are the top 3 to 5 that they should lock up or are trying to lock up?
The number one guy, from what I understand, is right-hander Yuri Perez. The two sides had conversations back in spring training of 2025. And obviously during the season, they don't really have those talks, but they are expected to resume this offseason, maybe even going into spring training. So I think he's the number one priority. You know, they don't really love extending pitchers either, but if there's one young pitcher to lock up long term, his combination of just control and command and stuff and age, he's the number one target. And then the second guy, Jacob Marcy, who debuted in the second half of last year. They acquired him in the Luis Ariz deal, and he just came up and was on a 5-win pace during his 2-month stretch with the Marlins. And there have been some conversations between his representatives and the Marlins as recently as the last couple of weeks, going after the winter meetings. And so I expect that to maybe be able to get done. From what I understand, they're looking at the first Christian Yelich extension from the Marlins. I believe that was in 2014, 7 years, $44 million ish. The Jared Duran one is another comp that I've heard. So it looks like the Marlins are trying to extend a couple of their guys.
All right. If you had your choice to make this team best, where it fits into this current young position player core that they have, what free agent bat or trade would plug in and make the most impact? I don't care if you say Kyle Tucker, you know, he lives in Florida. I don't care. It's more of how it fits into this roster and the niche that they need, because there are some positions that, in my opinion, are filled already in Miami with some really good players like Marcy. I love Augustin Ramirez. There's some guys that have good positions, but where do you see that fit being if you had endless cash?
If you look at the 2025 season, the position that lacked the most production was by far first base. And since I don't have a name for you, it looks like that they're not necessarily going after first baseman. It looks like they're trying to go the route of finding maybe an outfielder, whatever the best bat available is, whether trade or free agency. They're going to try and fix that first base issue internally. There's been reports that outfielder Griffin Conine will get reps at first base. There's reports that Connor Norby, Roberto Hernandez, a couple of other outfielders and third basemen could get reps at first base. So it doesn't seem like they're targeting a specific position on the diamond, more so just trying to find the best bat available to lengthen that lineup and then mix and match as the season goes on. Because the way I see it, there's maybe 4 guys in that lineup that are going to play every single day, and the rest it'll be a mix and match situation.
At some point, they gotta. I mean, it's great to extend, and it's great for a fan base to see these young players for an amount of years and get attached to them and all that stuff. But you got to get a little star power at someone if you want to rejuvenate a fan base and if you want to rejuvenate a great city like Miami, because it's not the best sports city. There's a lot of other stuff going on that guys. The games are just. It's one of the most empty stadiums when they play. You need that star power, and they had it before with the late Jose Fernandez and Giancarlo when he was hitting home runs there. It's like you got to have a face for the franchise or something like that. So it's nice to have these young guys, but at some point, if you want to actually do something as an organization, they got to go out and get a name.
Yeah, it wouldn't hurt. Just remember, I'm sure you know, when Stanton was chasing 60 and Jose was pitching as well as he was, no one was there either. You know, they had a tough time.
That's true.
They had a tough time getting fans in that ballpark regardless. So like I said before, they're just going to operate like the Rays, and they think that through development, through drafting, through clever trades and waiver wire pickups, they will get to where they want to be. And if it's not the sexiest way, so be it. But that's just the way that it sounds like they're going to go.
All right, I got an org question for you because I know Jeremy Powell, the head of pitching development, whatever name you want to have in the minor leagues, that got fired when Peter Bendix came in, or not rehired as minor league coaches go. If you don't get a job, you're not fired, you're just not rehired. He was very instrumental and essential in this crop of young pitchers that came up through the organization. He had his fingerprint on a lot of these guys. And Peter Bendix comes in and doesn't renew him. Just like the head of position players and hitting when Giancarlo Stanton, JT Realmuto, Christian Yelich, Marcell Ozuna were coming through the minor leagues, they get rid of that. Isn't that where the Marlins have to be 100%, even to the point of, look, Jeremy Powell, because I'm using that as an example, you've done so well helping these pitchers become who they are. Obviously, it's all on the pitchers. We need to keep you, plus add to that, because another coach, what does that cost? $150,000, $200,000 if you have the greatest one. But they're looking to cut those pieces, and it almost is like they're cutting their pipeline. That is the only way of what you just said, building this team from within?
Well, before Peter took over, the system was in shambles. I think we can all agree on that. They really had one of the worst farm systems in baseball. And since he has taken over, it has jumped to arguably top 10. And regarding renewing coaches, anytime a head of baseball operations department is going to, make overseeing changes, he's going to do some crazy overhauling. And unfortunately, there's some unpopular decisions when it comes with that. But yeah, there's a lot of examples of coaches that I thought could have stayed, or even AAA Jacksonville's coach not coming back either. There's a lot of moves that are head scratchers at times, but again, Peter Bendix is always going to bring in his own guys, guys that he's comfortable with, guys that he has history with, even if, hey, those guys directly had an impact on some of these young guys pitching really well. And unfortunately, it's just the way it goes.
All right, so one more pitching question for you. Calling pitches from the dugout. They did it the last month. As a catcher, I have some, not 100%, I'm not 100% against it. I'm some percent against it, because all it is about success. And the success showed when they did it, I think was it the last month or the last 2 weeks? They can show in that small sample size that it was successful. Are they going to continue it and ramp it up more?
Yes, that will be continued. Obviously, Miami's assistant pitching coach, Alon Leichman, is going to go be with the Colorado Rockies as their head pitching coach. And so since then, Miami has been able to replace him with Rob Marcello. And it sounds like they're going to go into spring training and see how it goes and, get everyone up to speed with that process. But it does sound like that will continue going into 2026, as well as through all the minor league levels. They will be calling pitches from the dugout. And if I had to guess, it'd be Rob Marcello calling pitches this year. To replace Alon. And then, it is an interesting POV. Like you said, you're a catcher. There's guys in the dugout that don't know how the hitter's feeling behind the plate, like you guys would do. So it's definitely interesting what they're doing. But the results, you can't argue with the results so far. They only did 2 weeks toward the end of September, but it really panned out pretty well, honestly. But obviously, it's September numbers, so you can't put too much weight on it. However, yes, it will be back in 2026.
When it has success again, because obviously if it doesn't have success, we're not going to hear about it. It's not going to be the front office's fault. But when it has success again, does it seem like a approach that will work in big situations, in playoff situations, in the place where I hope the Marlins organization wants to get to, and that's into big games?
That's a great question. I would assume that if they're doing it in the minor leagues, or they're doing it in spring training, and they're doing it from opening day on, I would have to imagine that if they're playing in the National League Championship Series, they're going to be doing it there too. They've been prepping their catchers in the minor league levels for years, or for the last year anyway, for this situation. And I wouldn't understand if they would do it only for the whole 162 game season and then not when it really matters in October. I would tend to agree with you that, I would like in those high leverage spots to maybe let the catcher make those calls, but their point of view is to let the catchers just focus on catching the ball and hitting and framing well. And then, just leaving the pitch calling to the guys in the dugout.
Hey, last one for you, Isaac. I lived in Miami for 5 years, and I want to go back to how you described Giancarlo Stanton and Jose Fernandez. They're still not commanding an audience. If it's you own the team right now. How do you create more buzz? I mean, a couple things that come to mind. I think the Heat have done a much better job. Sure, they had that era when LeBron and Wade and Bosh were there, and that certainly helps. But you know how Miami is. You need success and star power. So I don't think that the way that they're doing things is going to lead to butts and seats, right? Just, hey, I don't think they're going to build a consistent winner with this model, right? The Rays, they're basically doing exactly what the Rays do. And the comp for the Rays, in addition to being in St. Petersburg, which I know is a factor, is that they don't build around stars. And the Tampa Bay Lightning did. And we see the difference in how those two businesses operate. You go to Tampa and you're like, wait, is hockey more popular than baseball in Florida? And it's like, no, nobody plays hockey in Florida, but they end up having this super successful franchise. So I start to think, okay, I worked in a number of spots in the sports scene down in Miami. The only combination that works is both. You need success and star power, and then you will get people to show up. It needs to be a party, a vibe. It needs to be, of course, like the WBC. You're not going to get that, but you need to figure out ways to recreate that. So how would you fix it?
I think number one is continuity, and that's something that this organization, this franchise in its entire history has really never had. And I think you could see some of that now with some of the extensions we spoke about earlier. And then factors are around the ballpark, the infrastructure. If you go to a you go to a ball game at Marlins Park or at Lone Depot Park, there's not much to do either before the game or after the game. I've covered games on the road at Wrigley Field, and there's just, infinite things to do after the ball game that fans really like to do. So it's got to be more than just a baseball game. It's got to be an event for fans to want to go to. And I think the Marlins have done a pretty good job of enhancing the ballpark experience for the NL East. It's going to bring more butts in that stadium. So it starts with continuity of your big star players. I think Sandy Alcantara is going to be back next year, so that's a big start. That's a good start. And they're going to have some firepower. And they're hoping that Agustin Ramirez and Kyle Stowers can launch home runs for years to come. And they're also working on some construction around the ballpark and some stuff that could probably help with the infrastructure side.
Cool. I would love to see it. Yeah, I'd love to see it. I want to get to a game this year. And really, of course, it's going to be buzzing for the World Baseball Classic coming very soon to that area. I'm sure you've been. For me, the World Baseball Classic in Miami was a crazier scene than any World Series or postseason game I've been to. That's how incredible it is. So you see the electricity, and many people are coming from Miami or places right around Miami. Of course, people fly in. So anyway, you just wish. You sit there and you're like, damn, this place could be lit. So, but yeah, Isaac, great to talk to you. Really appreciate the time. And Fish on First is the spot if you want to read all of Isaac's work. Fish Unfiltered if you want to listen to him, and you can follow him at Isaac Azout, Azout, on Twitter. Oh yeah, and on the way out, if you want to stop by, there's a somewhat new restaurant that's quite popular down there called Shiso.
Yes. In Wynwood.
Right.
Check it out.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you, Isaac. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Shake it up. That's what the Diamondbacks might be doing. And this is definitely a good segment title for the owner of the Arizona Diamondbacks, Ken Kendrick, because it's like chilling. Okay, I want him. And to me, Kip, I've said this many times on the show, he defines what being an owner in baseball should entail. Like he keeps to his certain budget and he does his thing, but then he can wake up one day and just be like, I think I would like to have a conversation with Corbin Burns. And that hadn't been a thing, right? This is my toy. This is my ship. So the latest is Alex Bregman pursuit and how that factors into what they do with Ketel Marte. Kratz made a great point about how he felt like that doesn't do a lot from a productivity standpoint. Ken Rosenthal's latest note is how those two could end up together. There could be a scenario where Bregman and Ketel Marte are on the team. And now we're talking, right? And it's in the latest column from Ken, who has Fair Territory out. If you want to check that out, it's already up on YouTube and podcast platforms fresh from today. I think Ken's joining us tomorrow as well. But Kip, if you actually click into the article, Ken mentions essentially how he finds it unlikely. So is it likely they sign Bregman? No, but if they do, it still sounds like they're going to trade Ketel Marte because he has the 10-5 rights kicking in a week and change into the season. And the Diamondbacks just don't want to be stuck with him for the length of the contract. Not stuck, but have no option in case they want to trade him at some point. So they want to smash the veto rights for him. So your thoughts on all of this?
I like what you said about the owner. I think there's the realistic thinking of most teams. Not all teams can win every year. I think there's times to push and pull. There's times to pull the strings, and there's times to go for it and all that stuff. And I like where he at least puts out a competitive product, though. I mean, they're only 4 years removed from a World Series, or 3 or 4. But I don't know if Bregman would be the right answer here. I love Marte as a player. I think him and Perdomo up the middle are one of the best middle combos in the entire league. But I watched a couple of their games last year. I did radio for Cleveland versus Arizona. It's a very top-heavy lineup. I think after you get through those first 4 or 5, there's not much behind it. So they really need to lengthen the lineup. But I think they could spend the money that they were going to spend on Bregman maybe to kind of maybe spread it to 2 or 3 different people instead. But I like a guy who, when the time comes, he can pull the trigger. He's not automatically out of conversations because of a certain price tag or a certain player's name. So that is fun to watch, and it's fun to have as a fan of that city.
I will go to exactly what he said after they lost the World Series. The next offseason, while it didn't work out, I get it. And so maybe he's a little bit reticent to do the same thing. He said he went to his general manager, Mike Hazen, and he said, we have a little extra money coming in because they had all of the season ticket holders, and they sold more season tickets than they had anticipated because of the run that they made. And they went out and got Jordan Montgomery, who at that time was the guy that, had been the guy to like, hey, push the Rangers over. And so they said, you know what? We're going to go out and make that push. It didn't work out, but that's what owners are supposed to do. You get a little extra cash, you get the taste of winning, and you're like, I want to keep winning. At the time, they had Corbin Carroll, Rookie of the Year, MVP type of player. They already knew what Ketel Marte was. Geraldo Perdomo was getting to where he was. I think they always knew it. He just had that, energy, and they pushed. So you want that type of owner because it's not all about the bottom line. It's about the rings. Put the rings on that things.
Kratz, is there a world where they sign Bregman and they really focus the return for Ketel Marte on guys that are ready now?
Yes.
Okay.
There's no way
would you feel okay about it?
If they get that top end starting pitcher, if they get that guy that would couple with, the hope of what Mike Soroka is going to do, the hope that Merrill Kelly, not even hope. I mean, I think he's shown he can be a solid contributor, but you need somebody that, for Ketel Marte, you need somebody that's going to start game 1 or game 2 of your postseason. I'm not saying it has to be somebody that's starting a game 1 for everybody, but it's somebody that's starting one of those 2 games. Just because Corbin Burnes isn't going to be back for a majority of the season, and I think you need somebody, depending on where he's at, you need somebody to be able to slide into that role and that's a tough return. It's a tough return for the team that's getting rid of him, but it's also a tough return for your scouts saying, I know this guy can definitely start game 2 for us if Corbin Burnes is 100% hitting on all cylinders going into the playoffs. Because this is a Diamondbacks team that they struggled last year, but if you look at all the last few seasons since they were in the World Series, they are right at the cusp. They even won more games than they did in their World Series winning season or World Series making season. They won more games the next year and didn't make the playoffs. So they're right on the cusp, and I think that starting pitcher plus Bregman would definitely, I'd be more okay with it than I was when you just say, oh, get rid of Ketel, we're going to get Bregman. Because like I said yesterday, it's not an upgrade. As much as everybody loves Bregman and he's Mr. Consistent, you have a tough time. You have a tough time backfilling with what Ketel Marte has done and will do here in these next few years.
I think pretty standard. A lot of people would take Marte over Bregman at this point. Yeah. I think that's not knock on Bregman. Marte's just been that good the last 5 years or however long he's been doing it. My question would be, I don't disagree with you, Kratz, on needing to get back that guy who could fill in a number 2 starter like that. But if a team's trading for Marte, they're trying to get better. They're trying to maybe make a run and go for it. Are they going to really let go of that much big league level talent, a guy like that? Wouldn't they need him and try to keep him? I feel like they'd be more apt to deal prospects than the big league level talent if they're trying to upgrade their big league roster already.
That's why I think it's a small window of pitchers. Like, do the Mariners give up Bryce Miller? Do the Dodgers give up Emmett Sheehan and maybe Robleski? those are the two that come to my mind right out of the gate. Like you look around those teams that are on that fringe that want to upgrade. Do the Red Sox. The Red Sox, I get it. They have Campbell at second base. At second base, but he's in the minor leagues. They signed him to an extension, so they would need an upgrade at second if they don't get Bregman. But they don't have enough pitching that it would match up. It's a small window of teams.
Yeah.
But I think those two teams, the Dodgers and the Mariners, that's where I see the Mariners being high up there. And I know everybody needs depth in starting pitching, and the Mariners saw that last year. They needed depth because the year before, everybody stayed healthy. It's not going to happen. But when you have the depth and the quality depth like the Mariners have, I've been calling for it, and they did it a little bit last year, going to get Suarez and Naylor at the trade deadline. Now is the Ketel Marte piece that makes the Mariners the American League favorites. In my opinion, it does. That makes that lineup and that starting rotation and that bullpen the best team in the American League.
Jorge Polanco had a really strong postseason, but he's nowhere near.
And a strong year.
Ketel Marte.
I think he had.
Yeah, and a strong year. He did. He had
a plus 132 OPS plus, I think. Like, that's why he got $20 million a year. But when you start talking about Ketel Marte for 17 a year now, at the level that he's doing it at, Kip, you were an incredible offensive second baseman. Ketel Marte is doing things that other guys are not doing at that position.
I think he's the best second baseman in the league right now. Trying to think of who else would be above him. He does it all. He's a gamer. He shows up every day. No, he's one of the most reliable guys that you can just put his name in and not think twice. And for
also,
17
we'll talk about
million
him later.
Discount.
Yeah, that's a bargain. Right. Because Kip, I think Bo Bichette's eventually going to sign with the team as a second baseman, and I think he'll immediately become one of the best second basemen in baseball. I think he'll be able to handle the position and be above average, and then he'll be a top 3 bat at the position. He's going to cost like $200 million. It's basically double Ketel.
That's kind of how the game works, though. From football to baseball or anything, guys sign these big deals, and then 5 years later, those deals look cheap compared to the inflation of the next deals. So Marte's deal is looking better and better the more that all these other deals are coming out. That's why, the Polanco 40 surprises me a little bit, that number. I think they overspent a little bit just to make sure they got their guy, but again, good for him. By all means, get your money. But if you're looking at Marte's deal, there's not many better deals around there. So value-wise, at least.
Hey, let's get to some other notes here from Ken's column this morning. He posted about Jorge Polanco. We just brought him up. He said the Rays were Kratz's 2 favorite words related to him. The Rays were in on Jorge Polanco, and they got outbid. But they were trying for him, and they said, cool, this guy can play anything infield besides shortstop, which was his original position, but he's not really a big league shortstop anymore. So first, second, third, DH. And you anticipate if they had done that, Kratz, they would trade Brandon Lau or Yandy Diaz. So if you're the Rays, you're probably looking shrewdly and saying, okay, I can spend probably similar money AAV on him compared to what Yandy and Bilal are costing me next year. I can trade those guys since they're both entering their final seasons, I believe. Definitely yes. Bilal. Yandy, I have to look up to confirm that. I had gotten conflicting.
I think it's Yandy's last year, and both of them, I guess. Go ahead, team.
I think he has a club op. Okay, I think I'm right on this because I was on a Rays podcast recently, and they said he was a free agent, and then I looked it up and I wrote it down, and you can't always find everything, but $12 million for 2026 for Yandy, $10 million club option, or $13 million vesting option if he hits 500 plate appearances. So I think he does actually have 2 years left. So it's 2 years of Yandy, 1 year of Bilal. So in my mind, Kratz, it would have been sign Polanco, trade Brandon Lau. And boom, there you go. You get a return for a guy who's about to leave, and you sign Polanco for a similar number. Oops, your number wasn't big enough. They probably were like throwing him 15, and he ends up with 20 plus a year.
So I'm going to kind of go against that only for the simple fact. I know he didn't sign there, but I know the Rays have made 2-year deals for guys that were exactly what other teams offered. Now, were they a little short money-wise? Maybe. And maybe that's why Polanco went to the Mets. Or just like when DJ LeMahieu signed with the Yankees, his 2-year deal that he ended up signing and winning a batting title, he got the exact same offer from the Rays. And he felt like the Yankees were at a better spot in the sense of, hey, you know what, I can make the playoffs sooner. So maybe that's what Jorge Polanco was thinking, or maybe it was just a dollar for dollar thing. But the Rays on these shorter term deals, I say 2 years to 4 years, they have been in the market for or offering the same amount of money that other teams have been offering. I just don't think they have that offer, where it's like, oh yeah, we're ready to win right now. It's just more of like, hey, if this is the same amount of money, I'm not going to go to a place that isn't quite ready to win right now. And so let's say in this scenario that it was 2 years, $40 million or $20 million a year. Is his versatility really that big that you'd be willing to get rid of Brandon Lau, who I think is number 2 all-time on the home run list? I'm not sure. I know he was climbing up the board in Rays history, but you would, just because he's more versatile, like Jorge Polanco DH'd last year. He played all of 1 inning at first base, and I think, don't quote me on this, but I think he played like 10 games at second base.
No, he played. No. That part you're off. He played.
Do I have it? Do I have it mixed up? I got.
The season escapes me quick, but I feel like I watched enough Mariner games and saw him filling in at second base. It felt like more of a split, if I had to guess. But let's look this up together. And it was smart. It kept him off his feet more. How many?
34 starts at second base, 38 games, 87 DHs. That doesn't sound like somebody that's versatile. It doesn't sound like somebody that's, he's willing to play third, second, first. That doesn't mean the year before that, he played 109. So what happened last year? Was it the fact that how they built their roster? The Mariners said, we don't need you that many times, but to drop 70 games, Kip, did you ever drop 70 games played at second base from 1 year to the next?
Yeah, 19 and then COVID year the next year.
Thanks, Stephen A. But like when you're moved off a position, I have a hard time believing that you're all of a sudden just going to be like, yeah, I'll go play everywhere. I'm not saying he's all-time DH, but this is why I blasted it for the Mets. And if I'm not going to blast it for the Mets, why am I not going to blast it for the Rays? $20 million for a guy who supposedly will play third, second, first, DH. Maybe it'll work, but is that the most value? Is that more value than Brandon Lau playing every single day, or if he's healthy, at second base?
That's a team that if he drops 70 games, starting 70 games less the next year, either something happened or some opinion change from the organization to where, I'm with you on that one.
How about this? Which player would you rather have at second base just for next season? Jorge Polanco or Brandon Lau?
That's easy for me.
Brandon Lau.
Wow. Okay. I think they probably looked at the two. This is what the Rays would do and said, it's close enough. Let's bring on Polanco. Polanco has less swing and miss. I mean, they're very different hitting profiles. Lau's big pop, big swing and miss guy. Polanco will give you kind of a mix. But like you said, Kratz, a lot less second base lately. Yeah, I guess you're right. 2 years ago, the strikeout numbers were high, right?
They really high. Went. I mean, that's why they brought him in. They said, oh yeah, we want less strikeout guys, and then he went to the Mariners, and they were like, come on, Jorge, you can strike out too. And he was like, okay, cool, it's no problem. Nobody's gonna give me a tough time.
You just needed a year. It was a year buffer.
Oh, the batter's eye. The batter's eye was angled. It was tough to
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, coming up next, we're going to hit the Guardians. Paul Hoynes is about to join us. Here he is, Paul Hoynes, joining us right now. You can watch his coverage both on the Cleveland Baseball Talk podcast and also, of course, on cleveland.com, beat writer there, longtime covering Cleveland and recipient of the 2026 BBWAA Career Excellence Award. He's going to be inducted into Cooperstown this summer. So it is great to have you on, Paul, and congratulations on the honor.
Thank you. Thanks very much, guys. Thanks.
Well, let's get into biz first. Where are we at with Cleveland so far this offseason?
They've been they're on the back burner as usual. They haven't done a whole lot. They've made a commitment to go with their young position players. That's why they obviously need some help offensively, but they're going to rely on their young players that they've developed over the last few years. They've made some moves in the bullpen department, added 3 or 4, free agents. They took a guy in the Rule 5 draft, but basically it's been a pretty quiet off season for Cleveland. A team that's won the division the last 2 years.
Yeah, the last time they were this good, Jason Kipnis, Corey Kluber, Lonnie Chisenhall. They went out and got an Edwin Encarnacion. Does the organization think this team do they think this team isn't very good? Because Stephen Vogt is never going to say that. Stephen Vogt's going to be the eternal optimist, one of my best friends that is just so positive. He thinks this team is good, and he has to convince his players this team is good. Does the organization not think that? Or if they did think that, where would that Edwin Encarnacion move come from?
Yeah, I mean, the last time they did, the Encarnacion deal was what, 3 years, $60 million. That was right after they reached the World Series in 2016, and they have not made that kind of commitment. It was almost like last season. That was almost like, to me at least, it seemed like a step back season, a season to reset. And all of a sudden, they come back from 15 and a half games out in July. They're still, 11 games out on September, and they win the division. It was almost, they were as surprised as anybody else. And I think they're still in that same kind of boat. They've wanted to make, commit to the young players, and it doesn't seem like they're going to, deviate from that path.
Paul, what's going on? Jason Kipnis here, longtime listener, first-time caller. Good to see you.
What's up, Kip?
It's nice that I get to ask you questions now. Look at us. I get to ask you all the questions now.
That's right. This is a little reversal.
Yeah. First question. How the hell did you get into the Hall of Fame?
I'm asking myself the same question.
You know what?
When they told me at the winter meetings, I almost passed out.
Listen, you were there long before me, and you're there long after me. You've been doing it for a long time for Cleveland. I know we've had our riffs and back and forth, but there's always a respect there. And I just want to say congratulations to you. That is well-deserved. Happy for you. That's awesome.
Thanks, Jason. I appreciate that. That means a lot to me.
What can you tell us? I know there's some rumors, I think, where we both are well in the know of that Cleveland kind of has to mix and match some pieces. And we were just talking about that. They're not always in for those big names or those big contract guys. So I'm hearing some rumors between Cleveland and the Cardinals, I think. Is there any front on that, whether Donovan's names come up, or what can you tell us on that end?
Yeah, they have, that name has come up, but again, when we've asked about that, they say they do not want to bring in, a free agent on a 2 or 3 year deal to block the path of a young developing player that they've invested in. So, I would really, I think eventually they'll make a deal. They'll add some, a hitter to this lineup at some point, but I don't think it's going to be a high profile guy, Jason, or even maybe a mid-level guy. I just think I just get that impression.
All right.
Yeah, I think sorry, Erik, I got one more quick follow-up. I think on that one, Paul, would you agree that they're still in the same position where they want to see the first half and their big names or big profiles would come at a big deadline trade, kind of like a push? They never really do it in the offseason besides what we've talked about Edwin earlier.
Yeah, that's if they're in position, if they're in contention, they will make moves. I guess the name out there right is Stephen Kwan. That's the name they're getting a lot of calls on. That's the one player that people want. They came after him at the deadline last season. This winter it's been the same. But I get the impression that he's going to be the opening day left fielder for Cleveland, on March 26th. And if there's, depending how the season goes, there could be more activity at the deadline because he's only got 2 years of control left. So, as you know, they usually, if he hasn't signed an extension by now, that usually means, one way or the other, he's going to be leaving Cleveland probably within the next 2 years.
What would they look for in return? Since it wasn't going to be my question, but you're talking about if they would trade him, if they would trade Stephen Kwan, what type of return do you think, where this roster currently is, the Guardians need to go to? Because of, they're a playoff team each year. Some people don't know how, but they're a playoff team. A few pieces here and there. Could they beat the Yankees 2 years ago? Could they beat the Tigers, who they outlasted for the division, if they make this Stephen Kwan trade a more big league next 3 year type of trade and not, save my job for the next 6 years type of trade?
Yeah, they wouldn't. That's the tough part. When I try to think about this, Kwan is probably your second best offensive player next to Jose Ramirez. And you hit 226 as a team last year, the lowest team batting average in franchise history. That goes back to 1901. And are you really going to trade that player? And if so, what do you get for him? And do you get another offensive player? He's a leadoff hitter. He doesn't hit for a lot of power. I think he would fit on top of a really a dynamic offensive team. He might be, that would probably make him even better. But to get, if the Guardians had trade him, they would have to get back. I think the one thing they're lacking is it'd have to be some kind of power, but it's a hard deal to wrap your head around. I guess, you'd have to get back, like you said, you'd have to get back some immediate players that give you some immediate impact. And, I would imagine some prospects.
All right. You talked about power. It's 7 days till Christmas. Jhonkensy Noel just got designated as we're talking here yesterday. And it's ironic that Luke Weaver, who we hit the huge home run in the playoffs off of, signs a 2-year, $22 million deal on the same day that he gets designated. Did they get the most out of Jhonkensy Noel because of the fact that they called him up, he filled in some roles, or did they miss on the fact that he has light tower power and they weren't able to implement it in the big leagues well enough for him to stick and be a big part of that power that they're lacking?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I always go back and forth. Jason knows this, that they platoon so much in this organization with the lineup. There's only 2 or 3 guys that play every day, and with Jhonkensy being a young guy, big swing, it's hard for him to come. To me, it was hard for him to really get into a groove. Now in 2024, I thought they used him a lot better than they did. But of course, he had better numbers in 2024. But to me, they have so many outfielders, and they mix and match every day that the players sometimes they can't get in a groove. They're in and out of the lineup so frequently that I think it as a team for team wise it works. Wins and losses it works, but some players suffer in that arrangement.
No, you're absolutely right. I think if you don't get those everyday at bats or know that you're still going to be in the lineup after an 0 for 4, you start kind of pressing and grinding a little bit too much, and you never really find that groove that can set you forward and give you the confidence to become a better version of yourself. My guess is I want to ask you, what would it take? Because I think some of the success Cleveland has had, and I think you're going to agree with me on this, some of their success has almost hurt them in the long run because they have made it to the playoffs, been almost right there without making that big splash move, without spending that money. So the ownership really doesn't think that they ever have to because they think they're fine. But it seems like until they do, they're not going to get over that hump, and they're always going to be stuck in this middle ground with a fan base wanting them to spend more. What would it take for a reset? What is it going to take where what would a Jose Ramirez trade do for this franchise? Or when would it come to that point to where Quan and Ramirez and you really just reset? Because if you're not going to spend money, you might as well retool and restock, and those two guys can give you the biggest packages back.
Yeah, there might be a revolt in Cleveland if they trade.
I hear you,
Ramirez.
as there should be. As there should be. We all love him, but he definitely has, with his contract, could bring back a good haul.
But they are in a position, Jason, and you know this, having played there for so long, that they feel they cannot take it down to the foundation. They cannot do a total rebuild here. That's kind of been their claim to fame, that every year they put a consistent good team on the field. It might not be a name filled with household names, but they're able to produce. They're in the right division for them. They have a chance to win it every year. And I think the front office has taken that approach. And as you said, yeah, it can get you the division title. It can get you into the postseason. But then, you always run into the Yankees. And, the last time they ran into the Yankees in the ALCS in 2024, I think they got out homered like 10-4, to me, that's where they get caught short. That's where the power and the difference in talent comes to play. And, their thinking is if you keep getting to the postseason, one of these years things are going to break your way. But, it is really, it's one thing to win the division. It's another thing to, take the next step and advance to the World Series and finally win the World Series.
All right. Yep. 2 questions for you, Paul, are about you. You've been with the Cleveland Baseball Organization, writing about them for a long time. How many times do you still type in the Cleveland Indians, Cleveland Guardians? Because even Hall of Famers make mistakes.
Yeah, I've made more than – just ask Kipnis. He'll tell you how many mistakes I've made.
We don't have enough time on the show.
I ended up in Lake Erie with one of them. But, no, I still find myself typing Indians. I still – we write our own headlines now, and I'm still writing Indians and tribe in the headlines. It's a tongue twister for me.
Okay, so then that brings me to the next question. You've covered baseball this whole time. How hard is it to stay positive? Because baseball, I hate when people say baseball is a game of failure because I see so many positives, even in outs, even in mistake pitches, even in errors. But that's just the coach in me and the positive baseball player in me. How hard is it to stay positive as a writer that covers a baseball game for 162 games?
It's not hard for me. I like the game. I like the game because every day is different. There's a different story, there's a different theme. You can talk to different players. There's going to be some bad games, obviously, some bad losing streaks, winning streaks, but there's usually always something to write about, always something to have a little fun with, to inject some humor in it. Not, staying positive, you know, I think that's easy for the writer. I think the tough part is staying positive if you're a player and you're struggling and you're on a losing streak. You're not getting enough playing time. I marvel at the mental approach that players have that keep them showing up day after day after day. We get days off. The players never get days off. They got to be at the ballpark every day. And I've learned over all these years to really respect that. I respect the skills it takes. And I don't know if I was always like that when I was, first started off. I was more kind of a wise guy at first.
Listen, I think I had a lot more bad games than Paul had bad articles. So you've been doing it for a long time. And again, no, you've been doing this for a real long time, and your commitment to an organization that both of us love and hold dearly. I do want to show you my appreciation and congratulate you again on making it to the Hall of Fame.
Thanks, Kip. I remember you giving me let me drink out of your champagne bottle in Toronto.
Absolutely. And I look forward to seeing you here I'm sure we'll cross paths this next year too, this next season. So save me another handshake and hug, and I look forward to seeing you again, bud.
Okay, bud. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you, Paul. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Hoynesy. Good talking to you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
All right, we'll be right back. We'll bring in Zack Rosenthal. Zack Rosenthal is joining us right now in Foul Territory. Zack was the former assistant general manager and VP of the Colorado Rockies. He served in the organization for over 20 years and joins us for the first time here. Zack, great to have you on. How's everything going?
It's going great. Thanks for having me. Although I got to tell you guys, making me follow a Hall of Famer is not ideal,
You got it.
And we picked like the man of the minute too, right? He just learned about all of this a week ago at the winter meeting. So he's coming in with a lot of fire and passion and emotion. But hey, Zack, I mean, we haven't had you on here, so we have a lot to get to with you too. Always fascinated to talk to front office members, and we do it frequently on this show. Let's just start with your take on the state of the Rockies and what you did there, right? And what's going on there now as they are going through a number of changes. Just want to give your take. If I saw you randomly at a bar and was like, hey, what's up with the Rockies? And how was it being there for a while? What would you tell me?
I would say, first of all, that it was an awesome 20 years, right? I mean, I started in 2006 as an intern. 2007, we went to the World Series. So getting off to that kind of a start was amazing. Got to work with so many incredibly smart and good people. I think over time, you go through the ups and downs like every organization does. And, right now where they are, they've got some work to do. I mean, there's no question about that. But there's a lot of really, I think, strong foundational pieces in both the front office and in the clubhouse that I think, is going to allow them to make those moves more quickly than probably I think most people think.
Talk to me about strong foundational pieces. What does that look like for a baseball organization? Because as a player, I feel like they don't have strong foundational pieces, but I want to hear from a front office standpoint.
Yeah, I think, I think it depends on exactly how you want to define it, right? But the biggest thing is, in my mind, having just a handful of young players that are core players you can count on, players that are going to perform, players that are going to be the right type of representative for the organization, and players you can build around. And so, you're never going to, coming off a season like we had last year, you're not going to, have a full roster of players like that. But if you have some, then you have things to work around. And, guys like, Ezekiel Tovar and Brenton Doyle, and even more of the veteran guys, Kyle Freeland. There's some pieces there that bring experience and are certainly talented athletes and talented baseball players. And it's going to be up to the organization to kind of, build around those guys and make sure that the full 26, looks that way.
What about from an organization standpoint, from front office? When you said a strong foundation, I thought you meant from a front office standpoint they had a strong foundation, because I'll get right to it. I feel like when I watch the Rockies, and when I hear guys that come from the organization that were really good players, it seems like their foundation is not there. It seems like it's on a weak foundation of, we got really good players. We had Troy Tulowitzki. We had DJ LeMahieu. We had, going back even to like a Brad Hopp, Matt Holliday back in those times, really awesome guys, players that weren't being supplemented from their front office. And so when you say a strong foundation, I'm more talking like from a front office standpoint, what do they have in place that can move forward? Or is it something that has to be torn down from the bottom and built all the way up so that they have that strong foundation that you talked about?
Yeah, I gotcha. I wouldn't say that it needs to be torn down in its entirety. I mean, there are a lot of really, really good baseball people that work for the Rockies. I mean, really smart, creative, open-minded, and I think more than anything, very passionate about the organization. I mean, I don't think it's any secret that the Rockies are a pretty loyal organization. The ownership's pretty loyal. There's people that have been there a long time, and so everybody wants the same thing among that group, and that's to get back to where we've been. And I think, also I try to remind our staff when I was there. I would remind especially our younger staff. We've seen teams win in Denver. We went to the playoffs we went to the World Series in 2007, as I mentioned. But that little stretch was good. The 2009 team was good. The 2010 team was good. There was a little bit of a downturn there for a few years after that. But again, we got that core put back together. And in 17 and 18, we were in the playoffs. And so, I think it's really important to remind the younger staff that are kind of the new building blocks of that foundation that it's doable, because we've done it. I do think that it's going to be up to ownership to invest a little bit more in some of the areas that you read about, from a technology standpoint, just the number of staff members. I think the Rockies are still probably the smallest baseball ops staff in the game. So there's some work to do there, but they've hired some good people here in the last couple of months, and I'm excited to see what those guys can do with the pieces that have been in place and that I know really well, and I know they can contribute big time to a championship organization.
Zach, what was it like at the end of your tenure? From what I know, you had the ability to run the front office for a very short period of time while they were going through the transition, right?
Yeah. So
yeah. Okay. So, because it was like an interim. So what was it like there down the stretch when, they're going through the transition and then suddenly, you're given that role to, I don't know, I mean, how much decision making, because it was a short period of time, but what was that time period like? And, is it something that you enjoyed and said, oh, okay, maybe I can be the GM of this team or another team going forward?
Yeah. So it was a really short period of time. I mean, Bill stepped down shortly after the season ended. I think just the day after, the second day after, and I decided to leave a week, 10 days after that. And for me, it was just time for a change. I mean, 20 years in one place is a long, long, long time, and I felt like there was an opportunity for me to get out there and see other ways of doing things, to learn from some other people, to learn some other skills or some other just ways of evaluating baseball players and putting together a front office. I definitely, enjoyed my role with the Rockies really the whole way through. And do I have interest in being a GM someday? Yeah, I would love to. I think that's the goal for most people who get into the front office. And I was extremely fortunate to, have had the opportunity to move up through the Rockies front office the way I did. Working with Jeff Bridich when he was the GM, one of my best friends, great years there of success on the field and just a heck of a lot of fun in the front office as well. So, I try to look at every opportunity, Scott, as a learning opportunity. You can learn from the wins, you can learn from the losses. You can, if you really take advantage of it, you can learn from every experience. And so I tried to take, each day with the Rockies and put it to good use for me in the future.
One of the best qualities as a person is loyalty. Maybe one of the most hamstrung qualities of a baseball organization can be loyalty. There's organizations. Do you feel like that's brought up because people don't know, because people haven't been in? Like, I look at the White Sox. Jerry Reinsdorf is super loyal, and it's kind of put them in a little bit of a tailspin. I look at the Rockies, both from outsiders type of point of view, but it kind of has put the organization in an area where it looks like, from an outside, like so much loyalty. It's just the same guys getting recycled to new positions, but just different titles.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that from the outside. I don't necessarily think that that's the case on the inside, though. The folks that I think ownership in Colorado have been most loyal to are the ones that are really good. The ones that that have had the opportunities to move up and gain more responsibility or get experience in different areas. It can be viewed from the outside as a detriment for sure. I think one of the things that if I could just if I was the owner and could just do whatever, I think the loyalty piece is actually really important. I think it creates a lot of love for the organization. It creates a lot of passion from the employees for the organization. But I think what we needed to do a better job of, and I think we're starting to maybe see a little bit of that here over the last few weeks in Colorado, is bringing in, some people from the outside as well to supplement, the folks that have been there a long time. Just because you've been somewhere a long time and the owner is loyal or you're loyal as an employee doesn't necessarily mean you're not doing the job right. It just, it's the combination of everything. And as you guys know, it's all about who's at the top, right? It's all about who is the GM, how involved is the owner going to be, what's that vision look like, and then for everybody else, it's about executing that vision and making sure that what they want to see on the field is what we put on the field.
From a player standpoint, we always want the front office to go for it. We always want you guys to have our backs, if so to speak, and spend, unless it's our position, then we want you to, hey, we're fine, don't touch us. Like that's how we always work. But what don't we understand, I guess, because there's always, it's never that simple. It's obviously there's tons of moving pieces around that you guys have to deal with. So what is the biggest thing that players don't understand about how front offices work, I guess? What would you say to all the players? Like, what are we missing where it's just not that easy or simple? Why?
Because it takes two to get a deal done, always, right?
Okay.
So whether it's a free agent signing or a trade, I mean, there have been so many conversations that we have had about making deals with teams or with agents that just never get to that finish line for whatever reason. And it's never as simple as, hey, we need a catcher, so look, we're going to go just get one. When you're a kind of a middle market team too, you have to pay attention to your expenses, to your payroll. And you're also trying to balance that, like, hey, let's go get let's go help this team right now, but let's not mortgage the future, because that's really the only way we're going to be able to compete long term is making sure that we have those pieces coming up. So it's a tricky balance. I think a good front office knows when to roll the dice and knows when to really push their chips in, and then knows when to take a step back. And that's, you know, that's probably the biggest advice that I've given like our younger staffers in the offices they've come through, is just you have to be nimble, you have to be agile, you have to be willing to work differently depending upon whatever that situation is. And then you have to be really honest with yourself. And I think, you know, one of the things that we actually did really, really well in Colorado, and that I'm very proud of, is our relationship with our players. You know, I'm close with a lot of our guys. I would talk to them at the trade deadline and, you know, let them know what we're thinking. I would ask their opinions. They might ask my opinions, and try to be really honest with them about, hey, we had some conversations. It didn't work out for whatever reason.
Can it be fixed? Can the stigmas that go around Colorado playing there as a player, can it be fixed? You look back at like Kyle Freeland's 2018 season. Ridiculous. As a free agent pitcher, you're like, wait, he did it. You look at oh man, I always forget his name, the lefty that pitched back in the early 2000s came from Mexico City. He had success. You look at, so can this be fixed? Can you as an organization, can the Rockies as an organization say, we're all in on this type of player for the outfield, we're all in on this type of pitcher, and make it ours? Because I think too long I've heard coming out of the Rockies organization, we don't recover so well, it's tough to put together an entire season. To me, it's like excuse, when this could be 81 games of the Rockies absolutely demolishing other teams with a home field advantage. So can that be fixed?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's we've done it before, right? I think anytime you can point to the past and say, hey, it works, we had success. You know, I think you can point to that and know that we can do it again. I personally think that the biggest the course field and playing baseball in altitude is the biggest puzzle in professional sports, in my opinion. It's the game is different. You guys know, you guys played there. The game's it feels different, it acts different. And you know, you talk to any players that come over to the Rockies from other organizations, and they'll tell you that their body feels different day to day, and that's science. It's harder to recover here. And I think what is incumbent upon the organization is to create as much depth as humanly possible so that you can account for that. Whether it's optioning guys down for, you know, to give them a break, you got to have somebody you can bring up who can still compete, right? It's about having, you know, maybe 6 or 7 starters that you trust so you can skip a guy every once in a while. You know, even the position players, making sure that, you know, you're not just giving a game away when Nolan Arenado isn't in the lineup, right? So it's about depth, and it's about creating as much of that as possible. I think where the Rockies have struggled, though, in the past is kind of a lack of a willingness to make trades with those veteran guys to create enough depth behind them to ensure that you've got the players for sure.
Oh, we hit a little freeze there. I think we're
Yep.
back, but it was just at the tail end, but we're good. We're good. I'm glad we didn't lose you completely, because I do want to finish this conversation, Zach, with an important question that has been asked. Kratz, mine's a funny one. So if you want to get a serious one, and I saw you just texted me, then you can go before I do, because mine's kind of fun.
One serious question.
Okay.
Chris Bryant.
Yeah.
Can you give us your synopsis of not only what you were getting when he came in, but how it's gone, and what those you talked about? Like, you talked to a lot of the players. What's that conversation like with him when you have that conversation, knowing what he was expected to be when he came into this organization and signed the contract that he did?
Yeah. You know, So when we signed Chris, it was, you have to remember, you got to go back a few years. You have to put behind you what has already happened here in Colorado because we didn't know how it was going to go. And at the time, he was still a younger player, or at least not an older player. He was right there in the middle of his career, and he was a guy that had been an all-star the year prior. We got to know him a little bit, some of our staff, because we ended up hosting that all-star game in 2021 when they moved it from Atlanta. And he was part of that. He had played well for the Giants the second half of that season when they had traded for him. And, we also organizationally had gone through Nolan just having left. And so it was really important to our ownership to make a splash and to show our fans that they were willing to spend money and to try and compete and put, the right team on the field. I can tell you guys, Chris Bryant is one of the nicest human beings I've ever met in my life. He cares a great deal. He feels extremely responsible for, the fact that he hasn't been on the field much for the Rockies in this first part of his tenure. And I know it bothers him. I've seen it. I've heard it from him. I think, I don't want to say embarrassed because they're real injuries. It's not been performance related. But I do think, he knows the impact that he has on that payroll, and, he wanted to be a part of this, and he wanted to help the team win. And, he hasn't played a lot for the Rockies, but when he's been in the lineup, it changes everything. Even though he's not like, the Chris Bryant of old, the professionalism of his at bats, you kind of see that trickle down through the lineup, and the younger guys get to see it. And, I think a great deal of Chris as a human being. I think the one thing that I had somebody say to me once is that Chris Bryant's biggest problem is probably that he's the guy you want your daughter to bring home to meet the parents. And you don't usually want that to be your best player. I don't know if that's true, but
I get what you're saying, though. Yeah, there's a certain mindset, mentality, all of that, that just makes him a super wonderful guy to be around. But that's also a difference in, how you want your general to be in war or something like that, right? For lack of a better term. Yep.
Yeah. And both can be true, right? Both things can be true at once. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And you can have different blends of people on organizations, but if, it's a Rockies team that's young and needs someone like that, it's just different.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. So let's finish with this. You've got guitars behind you. I mean, is that you? Is that somebody else in the household? People are asking nonstop, because I do think that GMs are often, or front office members are often, looked at as quarter zip squares. I'm just being super straightforward about it. So there you go. But hey, I know some GMs, Zach, that are a great time, right? Whether it's a great guy to get a drink with, or somebody who really is musically talented, etc. So I just wanted to know, is that you? If not, what do you do for fun?
No, that is me. I'm not good, though, just for the record. Like, I'm not good.
So what?
But I grew up playing piano. I played the saxophone in college, and was in a all-state jazz band in California that we got to tour Europe a couple of times in high school. And music it's been music and baseball my whole life. And the guitar thing was a relatively new experiment. I really enjoy it. It's fun. It's a really nice way to get your brain off of the baseball stuff when you need to do that. And so it's like I said, I'm not good, but I really like it.
You don't have to be good. Kratz has bats on his wall behind him.
But I wasn't good. I wasn't good with those either. You're exactly right, Kip. No, music is aura, bro. If you can play a guitar, just the fact that you put it on your lap and you play a guitar like you've already upped. Because if you come in with a quarter zip to a party and you say you're a GM of a team, people are going to be like, eh. And then you pull the guitar off the shelf, they probably won't even hear you play it, but they'll be like, okay, like I kind of want to see this guy a little bit more. So if you want, the music is aura. We can't all have black diamonds like Kip, okay?
No, I could not pull that off. No doubt.
Right, exactly.
It's fake. It doesn't matter.
But it's a flex alone to be doing this conversation. There's guitars behind you, and you know what you're doing there, right? You may not be coming up with the next great hit, but if you can play a few things, maybe next time you come back on, we can show the world that GMs are humans too. They're not just hanging out in the front office all day and on their computer.
That's
They
right.
do get a little bit of time off, not a lot. I know the job's crazy, but a little bit of time off to do what they want. So, Zach, great getting to know you.
Hey.
Thanks for joining us. Yeah, what do you got? Final word.
Yeah. Oh, I was just gonna say, I think that's one of the most important things too, is whether it's the players, the front office, having an outlet that's not baseball is actually, I think, crucial to your success in baseball. And it's,
Agreed.
Something I encourage everybody to, in our office to, take some time, have a hobby, spend time with your family, do something that gets your brain off of the baseball stuff. Because otherwise, you can think about it 24/7 if you want to, and you got to force it a little bit sometimes, I think. So I appreciate you guys having me on, though.
You're the second best Rosenthal, but the first one we have on today. So we have to always make sure, because if we would say you're the best Rosenthal, then Ken would be super jealous, and we'd have to deal with that. I don't want that. So we appreciate you coming on. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
And for the record, we're not related, me and Ken. We're not related. We're only related because we're in baseball. That's it.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
And he would eat
Well
he
said.
would eat all the turkey at Christmas dinner, so you don't want to be related to him.
Perfect. Good to know.
Appreciate you, Zach.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
We're doing futures, BetMGM futures. That's what you do when you miss baseball. You look at what BetMGM thinks will happen in 2026 and the odds against it or for it. 2026 NL Pennant. Wow, that's kind of crazy to see the Dodgers at plus 160. That's not to win the division. That's to
Is that
win the
the-
National League.
Is that the lowest odds ever for a team before a season?
Gotta be up there, man. 1.5 to 1. That is
Good.
nuts.
For somebody who took down a decent amount of money for the Dodgers winning the National League pennant, I'm going to tell you to wait, because I got a much better number than that while they were playing the Phillies last year. So if you get to watch the entire season, and we knew that the Dodgers and the Phillies were probably the two best National League teams. I know Kip was like, oh, the Cubs, they're the best. And everybody in Milwaukee was like, the Brewers are the best. They win the most games. When the Dodgers were playing the Phillies, you had an opportunity to get a really, really good number on the Dodgers. And I took it, and they were never losing in that series. And I took that number, and it was better than plus 160. So I'm going to say, no, wait. If that is your choice, wait. There will be a better number.
Smart man.
It's actually a good point. There are often times during the season where many futures look more enticing. And yeah, if you've got playoff thoughts, it's baseball. Almost everybody goes through a high and a low, and sometimes you can cash in during those low points. So I'm not saying the Dodgers are going to start slow, but there are times when you look at a team and be like, their pitching's in shambles, and I don't know if this is it. I mean, the Dodgers had that once or twice this year where you're like, meh. I mean, it's not like they look like a disaster, but you didn't look at them as this lock to win the World Series. And actually, you could have put some pretty good money on them in Game 6. Would have been nice. Game 6 World Series. They were probably up to
The
what,
ninth inning?
Kratz? 3-1.
The ninth
maybe
inning
more.
of the World Series, you were going to gotten probably, I would say it was probably at like plus 600, 700. They were down by a run with 2 outs to go and Miggy Rowe was on deck. I mean, Miggy Rowe was at the plate. Yeah, you probably got much better numbers, but you're really waiting until the end there.
Yeah, that's pushing it. But anyway, during the season, you can find certain value in futures if you like to do it that way. It's almost like live betting in a game, but kind of doing that during the course of a season. But for now, yeah, I'm not touching this one. But if you feel that like you want to go there, it's not that I don't think it's going to happen. It's just the value is just it's too low in our minds. We're just giving you our thoughts. Anyway, let's get to football. No sweat token available for you in the BetMGM app to use on any bet on pro football, and you can use it by adding a little bet to your slip, activating the token, and getting bonus bets if the bet that you made with that token loses. Gambling problem or concern? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Yeah, that's what he said.
That's what he said.
That's what he said.
That's what he said.
Tigers president of baseball operations Scott Harris has been fielding a number of questions about the future of the franchise. They went through your classic rebuild. They've had a nice run the last couple years. That included getting very, very close to advancing past the Seattle Mariners. They lost in that game 5. But again, we looked at a team that kind of collapsed down the stretch, still made the playoffs, still beat Cleveland. It's back-to-back seasons where the results are strong, and you want to build on that because you went through the pain previously. Instead, Tigers fans are frustrated. They're dealing with Tarik Skubal trade rumors and not a ton of action and whispers about what's happening, right? Some reliever signings, cute, Kenley Jansen and Kyle Finnegan. But will the Tigers do something big? Scott Harris was asked about this, and his response has gone viral.
And this team is going to change. This roster is going to change. So like on the pitching side, for instance, like last year around this time, nobody really was talking about Troy Melton. And now all of a sudden he's a huge part of what we're doing. Like there are a lot of young players that are coming right now, a lot of guys that aren't necessarily top of mind, but they're going to be top of mind this summer. They are going to be a huge part of this. And we have to make space for that sort of natural change here. So listen, I understand by the nature of the question that the roster and the offense looks the same. Yeah, I agree. The names are very similar right now, but this team is not the same. This team is changing on an individual and a collective level.
That segment brought to you by Captain Obvious. Yes, nobody is the same on a day-to-day basis, but I would say this right to him if he was on the show, Kip. That's not really the answer people are looking for, and also everyone's aware that players are going to get better. Some players are actually going to get worse, but they're asking you about a change in personnel, not a significant one, but for example, can you switch up the offense a little bit by adding a bat? That's the kind of question that was asked, and the answer feels insulting to the crowd because it's like, well, we aren't the same. You're going to get a different version of Riley Green and Troy Melton.
By his reasoning, every other team's getting better too because all their players should be also along that same thing. So they're also, the other teams are making moves, so they're getting better players who are getting better at the same time, exponentially getting better now as a team. No, it's not the right answer. I would imagine he would want that back or just to, hey, kick in the butt to go make some moves here or something because you are on the verge of becoming a good playoff team and having a deep run. You've been right there the last couple of years. They did collapse down the last month, but they made up for it. No fan wants to hear, hey, everything's fine when you didn't win the World Series the prior year.
I'll tell you when everything was not fine. We're not even talking about the second half. We're not even talking. They made the playoffs. They squeaked in. Since Friday, October 10th at I'm going to say 12:30 at night. It may have been October 11th at 1:30. The Tigers still haven't scored a run. I think their last run that game was in the 6th inning. So, you know what? No, it's not okay. This team was so close to going to the American League Championship Series, and they have the best pitcher for one more year. I want a GM, as reckless as it can be, but as a fan, I want a GM to say, yes, I'm going to push. I'm going to push to get a guy in here that will make these young players, which, hey, are going to get better because they have another year in their repertoire, another year under their belt. To me, this is when you put your job on the line And it's okay to say, I'm willing to put this job on the line. And the organization says, ownership says, that's cool. I like that. We know it could make us take a step back in 2 or 3 years, or it could propel us to be a beast of the American League Central, which is winnable every single year. And you push forward because you have a guy that can change an entire 5-game series in Tarik Skubal pitching twice.
Here's the thing with the Tigers. It's a different regime these days. We are now years away from how Mike Ilitch operated the team. And this is just generally how it works. You pass it on to the next generation. They're going to run it differently. They're often going to run it more, quote, efficiently. And they don't look at it like we talked about earlier, Ken Kendrick and his toy, and suddenly deciding he really likes Alex Bregman or he really liked Corbin Burns. That's just not how most of the next generation works when they get past a team. And so let's take it a step further. Then they look for someone who's aligned with their values that is running the day-to-day in the front office. So that is what Scott Harris believes in, and does put you in a position to compete and maybe put together something that consistently pumps out prospects and good young players, Kip. But where are we? Right now, we're at a point where this team could push it in. And 2 years from now, they don't have Skubal, and they're in a weird spot. Okay. People aren't going to be looking at you like, what? You have to keep going. I mean, you hope that the team's in a good spot where everybody got better, because everybody's getting better every single day in life. But the point is that I think fans look at things much simpler than the viewpoint that is pushed out to them, right? It's all about the long-term vision, and everyone's getting better every day, and we're being really methodical about what we do and how we evaluate, and we don't want to block anyone, be a free agency. Like, nah, fuck all that. You guys rebuilt for a while. Now you're in your winning window. Put the freaking cherry on top, and then we'll worry about the shit in a few years. That's it. That's the whole name of the game. And when it starts to get really cute with like the terminology that nobody likes, it gets really frustrating. So we're actually taking it easy on this case right now in Detroit. They're having a field day with this stuff because they're pissed off. They're like, we've been waiting. This is the one time where you either make a decision. You're not going to pay Tarik Skubal. You trade his ass because you're going to get a lot for him, or you keep him for one more year and you load the hell up and have a chance to win a World Series this season.
I agree. Doing nothing, you're basically saying I'm doing something by doing nothing, and you're gonna look back on it and being like, I didn't do crap. Once you realize if it doesn't work out, it's like every GM hopes all their players get better. Every player hopes all their players get better, but that's not a move. You're not telling a fan base, hey, we respect you guys. We're going to try to put the best product out there. The best product is not standing pat on something that didn't work the prior year, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion.
Doubt. It's also bad business. It's just bad business, dude. Like the offseason is
the optics are bad.
Hope, excitement, season ticket signups. It's just bad optics. We are getting better. Our players are getting better. I've got one guy who's doing who's at the gym right now, and he's on the leg press. Like, cool.
Then they're getting better. You're not getting better. They're helping the team get better. What are you doing as a GM to help the team get better then? Otherwise, why are you there? Because all the players are working hard and trying to improve already. That's on them. They're trying to get better. They're getting better. What are you doing, though, to help them get better? It sounds like nothing at the point.
I think we just had Zack Rosenthal. I know this gets clipped and everything. We just had Zack Rosenthal on, who was in the front office with the Rockies. And I would love to ask him, why do GMs not say, yes, I want to push all in? Is it because they really want to keep that job for as long as possible? Because you're going to be out of that GM role at some point. Don't you want to say, I'm pushing all in? I want to be the best I can possibly be this season while also being the best I can be next season. While the best, like, that is what players do, because players know you might play 10 years. You might play 1 year. And players that have regrets at the end of their career are always the players who didn't put everything they had into it. They're like, man, I wish as a rookie I wouldn't have jacked around so much. I wish I had done more of this because I noticed it later in my career. It was more like the guys who didn't put everything into it have more regrets. I wonder if GMs feel that way too.
And here's my thing. No, I mean, they feel that way, but they can't say anything. Although some don't feel that way. Like, I actually genuinely believe that Scott Harris is just very careful and calculated. One of those super careful, calculated guys. Ken Rosenthal brought it up. He's as dialed in as anyone on the moxie of each GM. I mean, it sounds like Scott Harris is very much the opposite of Dave Dombrowski. And that's a thing, right? Everybody has their style. He's fitting to the style of who the owner wanted to hire. I think the thing that's pissing everyone off is that most Tiger fans are being pretty rational. They know they're not about to sweep the free agent field, but they're like, can you give us something? Like, when did Detroit fall completely into low market abyss? And the team's doing well. They're showing up. Butts are put in seats, right? One big move, Kratz, right? Can completely change things. And as you guys know, completely change the clubhouse. You show up spring training, you're like, let's fucking go. Look who showed up.
Well, one guy, because we look at it on such a linear level, that game at the end of the year, it probably wouldn't even have gotten to game 5, to be honest. And then you would have had Tarik Skubal pitching in game 1 of the American League Championship Series, probably game 4, and again in game 7. But one guy could have changed that. One guy in that lineup. Did they try for Alex Bregman? Absolutely. But this is what I'm talking about. You can pay anybody to try. Get it across the line. What does it take? I'm not saying they need help at second base because Glaber just came back. He signed, he took the qualifying offer. But what if they had Ketel Marte? There's a lot of what ifs, but push those what ifs off the table. I get it. You're not in on Kyle Tucker. That's fine. One guy that is an aircraft carrier, that is a difference maker, changes your entire season last year. Don't let it happen again. Don't let Tarik Skubal go without seeing a World Series in Detroit, because I know fans, Kip knows this, he played in the division, fans come out and watch their team in Detroit.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a hard place to play. When those fans show up, that place gets rocking.
And it's so weird because it's a single level stadium. It feels like they're like on top of you. It almost feels, it's just different. I feel like it's different. Playing against them early 2010s, when they were the bomb.com, it was like, oh man, this lineup is suffocating. These starting pitchers are suffocating. These fans are suffocating. And I love it because it's such a passionate city for their city. Like, you're Detroit, like you love your city of Detroit.
Facts. All right, let's see what they do. They've got a couple months to figure this out, and it's really just one move that can win fans back over, because they're pissed right now, and they shouldn't be coming off that postseason. Also, maybe they're just looking at it too soon and not waiting for the right move to happen. But this particular quote is why we wanted to spend 10 minutes on it. It went super viral. I'm like flipping through things last night on Twitter, and this quote just keeps popping up again and again. And people are like, bro, really? Like, if you were sitting with your buddy and he's trying to explain something super basic to you, and you're like, is that really what you just explained? Like, your players are going to probably get better, the same exact ones. You're teaching me about development. Got it. Let's slap.
Was it the
Sorry, Kip, I cut you with our cool animation by accident. But you got last word here. What do you got? What do you got
I was
for
going
us?
to say, isn't the definition of insanity trying the same thing over and over and expecting different results? So
Yes. It's just not the answer. It's just such a tough answer to say.
Yeah.
We are getting better. Look, I mean, FT's better. Kratz is here today. He's better than he was yesterday. Actually, that's not even true, right? Yeah, half your players might get better next year, and half your players might get worse, because there's no chance. It is not physically possible for next year in MLB every single player to be a better version of himself. You can't have everybody's ERAs go down and everybody's hitting stats go up. It's not possible.
Doesn't work that way.
No. But anyway,
I was
good
better
show
today than I was. I was better today than I was yesterday. But that's
I think you're better every day.
Because Jason made me better.
I think we make each other better, bud. Missed you guys.
Missed you too, dude. It's good to see you. have a great holiday, right? I don't think we'll catch it until January. We don't have many shows left. What's today? Thursday? We only have 3 shows left. And then I will say we've been racking up some cool content that we are going to unveil between Christmas Eve and New Year's so that we keep you entertained on the YouTube channel and on the podcast feed. We'll get into that more as the week continues. We also have an event announcement tomorrow, so we'll see you then.
Awesome.
I don't even know it. I'm so excited. I'll be here.
You're not invited.
It hurts. It hurts. 8 crazy nights.